Hi there, my name is Kaylin Kelly, and I think that the death penalty should be illegal. I think that it's kind of an easy out for capital offenders. Capital offenders include murderers and traitors to the country, and among others, but there's 34 states that approve of the death penalty, and so obviously or whom they find eligible for the death penalty varies a little bit, but common ones are murderers of different extents and traitors to the country. Also, I find the death penalty in itself to be extremely hypocritical, as well as death is irreversible. It's permanent. And then last but not least, it's extremely expensive. There's 5 legal ways to carry out capital punishment, which is just a fancy way to say the death penalty. But like I said, 5 legal ways in the United States. These include lethal injections, electrocution, gas chambers, hanging, and the firing squad. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into my 4 claims, and here we go. First one being death is too easy. I think that with the death penalty, these defendants aren't suffering the worldly or the earthly repercussions of their offense. Obviously, there's no one of those that were executed that can say if these methods are painless or not, but obviously they're not suffering very long because they die. For example, in the electric chair, there's an electric shock sent to the brain that shuts it off faster than it can even process pain. When being hanged, it snaps your neck, and the brain's access to the rest of the body is completely shut off. The heart stops, and you don't feel anything. So I think that obviously physical suffering is cruel and unusual. So I think that emotional suffering is the way to go. I think that these defendants should be locked in solitary confinement for the rest of their lives and made to just think about what they did. So, excuse me, but I think that they need to sit there and sulk and have time to regret and repent and to just fully understand what they've done and think of it, was it worth it? Yeah, I think this picture is great because it clearly shows that your mind can sometimes be the greatest prison because your thoughts can completely ruin you emotionally and mentally, and I think that that's a great punishment for these kind of criminals. Next, hypocrisy. It happens. It exists in the United States. There's lots of it in all aspects of life. And of course, that doesn't stop at punishment. So, just to sum up the death penalty, we are trying to deter potential criminals by saying, hey, don't kill anyone or we'll kill you. That to be hypocritical means basically, in simple terms, is to say one thing and do another. You say don't kill, but you kill anyone that does. Okay, wrong. This picture is called The Devil of the Death Penalty, and it was an illustration by Glenn Foden, and I think that it very cleverly represents the hypocrisy. It says, "Thou shalt not kill, it's a sin." But people still commit murders, I'm happy to say. And the state kills the murderers, I'm twice as happy to say. So, if we were to replace sin with crime, we'd be saying, it's a crime to kill someone. Then the state government kills whoever kills people. It's really hypocritical, and it's not doing anyone any good. So, I think that just adds to the unnecessity of it all. So, irreversibility. You can't unkill someone. It's permanent. There were 10 stories of defendants that were proven innocent after being executed on the Death Penalty Information Center's website. And so that just says that there's 10, or at least 10 known defendants that were innocent, but they were killed anyways. I mean, they didn't know that they were innocent at the time, or the government didn't know they were innocent at the time, but there's no room for error in a life or death situation. Speaking of error, there's this margin of error where people that have committed the same crime have been executed in different ways. And not that the form of execution makes much of a difference, but it's inconsistent, and there's really no room for inconsistency in life or death situations. So yeah. Next. Lastly, it's expensive. The death penalty there's no other way to explain it other than that there are hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars per case spent on every death penalty trial or case, There's a lot that goes into each one, and it all comes at a cost. High-end attorneys have to be paid. There's often experts that are consulted to run tests and stuff like that on the mental stability and the mental health of the defendant. There are mitigation specialists that are hired. They basically are detectives that work in the defendant's favor. They dig into their past and see if there's anything that they can find that would make their crime justified, or the slightest bit justified, whether that being them that they were raped in the past or they were abused as a child, that would kind of provoke this anger and so forth. Majority of the death row inmates are kept in solitary confinement, which can get costly as well. According to the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, they said, and I quote, "The most comprehensive death penalty study in the country found that the death penalty costs North Carolina $2.16 million more per execution than a non-death penalty murder case with a sentence of life imprisonment." And they got that information from Duke University. But imagine, so that's saying that same number of criminals, and we're saving about, on average, $2.16 million more per case, per execution. The possibilities of what, and obviously death penalty cases don't happen every day. But the possibilities as to what else our state government could be spending that money on are endless. And I just think that adds to the unnecessity of the death penalty. My Think Again page, it's where I'm going to take some common arguments or counter arguments for people that are in favor of the death penalty and see if I can rebuttal them to prove them differently. So people that would agree with the death penalty would probably agree that the death penalty is cheaper than feeding a murderer for life, when in actuality a death penalty case is more expensive than imprisoning someone for life. I just went over all the costs. It's about, in North Carolina, it would save us like $2.16 million per execution. Families of victims don't always want closure, which is a common thought. Everyone thinks, oh, the family of the victim just wants that person gone from the earth. Like, they don't want to walk the same earth as that person, which would be understandable, but that's not always the case. These families sometimes want justice. They want kind of a vengeance. So, yeah. It's also believed that the death penalty is used to deter criminals from committing crimes, or potential criminals from committing crimes. But if it was really deterring anyone, then we wouldn't have crimes. But they're still committed, and because they're still committed, we've got to carry out that threat, and the death penalty is simply just too expensive to be a threat. And so that's all I've got. So it's hypocritical. It's, in a way, death is just too easy for these criminals. They get it over with. They're just like, all right, no big deal. They did. Gone. It's permanent, so there's no, oops, made a mistake. I'm sorry, can't fix that you killed an innocent person. And then just the fact that it's extremely expensive. So I hope that you've learned something, and thanks for watching and listening.